Hello and welcome back to the Dish It Dirty podcast. Today's guest is someone who sits right at the heart of the UK cleaning and hygiene industry. If you've ever been to the cleaning show, you will know just how important it is to our sector. It's where manufacturers launch products, distributors meet suppliers, businesses discover new innovations, and thousands of industry professionals come together under one roof. And behind all of that is today's guest, Paul Sweeney. Paul is the event director at Quartz Business Media, the company behind the cleaning show, the UK's leading trade exhibition dedicated to the cleaning and hygiene industry. With over 30 years in exhibitions and events, Paul has built and managed some of the UK's biggest B2B trade shows across a wide range of sectors. And today he's responsible for delivering one of the most important events in our industry calendar. So today we're going to lift the curtain on what actually goes into organising an event like the cleaning show. So whether you're a manufacturer, distributor, supplier, contractor, or just someone with an interest in the cleaning and hygiene sector, this episode will give you a fascinating insight into the event that brings us together every single year. This is the Dish It Dirty podcast. Thanks for joining us, Paul.
You're very welcome. Thank you for asking me.
More than welcome. I thought this would be a fascinating conversation for people. As we spoke about when we first chatted, I came from the events industry initially, know how much work goes into it. I don't think anybody can ever fathom how much work goes into it behind closed doors. And I thought you'd be such a great person to speak to because it's such a wonderful show. So many people get so much value from it. And I think it'd be really great to just learn a little bit about what happens, behind closed doors to make it all work, and some tips and tricks and some advice for some people to get the most out of the show as well. I'm sure you've seen exhibitors smash it. I'm sure you've seen exhibitors also it not go so well for them as well. And I'm sure there's things that you can do to make it go in your favor. So I really appreciate you jumping on today. I think it's going to be a great chat.
No, it's all right. It's absolutely fine.
I thought we'd start off by giving you the floor a little bit to just talk about how the cleaning show is going, the organization for the next event next year.
Okay. So most people will know that the show flits between London and Manchester. So we're in London for 2027, having had our regional event in Manchester in February of this year. And London, I think most people consider London sort of like the flagship show because obviously it's bigger, it's been going a lot longer, and also because it's in London. And I know a lot of people who live outside London don't particularly like that, but that's the fact, and it does draw in a lot of people because it's in London. So, and it's quite difficult trying to sell a show 2 years out because in exhibitions, what you normally try and do is you normally try and sort of strike whilst the iron's hot and rebook as much as you possibly can whilst you're on site, whilst people are feeling good about the show, which hopefully they are, and generally they are. But normally if the show is an annual show, it's not too much of an issue trying to rebook it because obviously they've got to secure their spot for the following year. But when you're trying to secure a spot for 2 years' time, that's quite a challenge. So, what we normally try and do is incentivize people to say, look, if you sign up on site now, it's a cheaper rate than it will be because it's going to go up at X amount of time or what have you. So you're saving money there. You secure your spot. We won't invoice you for a year. So it's not like we're going to ask you for any money. And then if you decided subsequently to cancel after you've had your debriefs and gone through it all, etc., as long as you let us know in writing within 6 months, then you've got a way out. We're not going to come after you for any cancellation fee or anything like that. So I suppose I was trying to describe it as like putting your towel on top of a sun lounger. It's that can be controversial, of course. But yeah, generally that's what we try and do. And so from London 25, which was the last one, we walked away with maybe about 40, 50 signed contracts, which was pretty good. We've had a couple drop out. But, so, and that helps then when people look at the floor plan for the show, when it starts to build up for the next one, people feel better about the fact that some of the big names are in, if that makes sense. So, yeah, so where we're trading at the moment, we're ahead on where we were in the cycle 2 years ago. Revenue wise, we're slightly behind on exhibitors. I think with a 95 2 years ago, we're on 91 at the moment. So nothing to sort of get the old knees knocking or anything like that. But, we're entering the quiet time. People are talking about, towels on sun lounges. People are.
Yeah, for real.
clear enough to get their summer break. And so we, summer's always a slow period for us understandably, particularly in exhibitions. So
Yeah, fantastic. And I mean, with when people go to the show, they obviously see a few days of an exhibition. But how much work actually goes into making those days happen?
Oh, I mean, I don't know how you could describe it really. It's well, obviously, nothing happens without revenue, and that's what I'm ultimately responsible for driving the revenue. So we set the budget, probably a year out. We obviously always try and exceed what we did the previous time, where we can, if that's possible. This year's proving a little bit more challenging because there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, and people are being a little bit more cautious and slow on deciding whether they're going to get involved or not, and that's perfectly understandable, although albeit frustrating. So we set budgets. We have to get those approved, of course, by because the show is co-organised with the British Cleaning Council, BCC. We have a BCCE, so British Cleaning Council Exhibition Board. Those budgets have to be approved by them, and then we have to, the hardest part, I suppose, and probably the most expensive part, is negotiating with the venue. That's our biggest outlay. I mean, it costs us nearly £250,000 just to hire XL. And that's just for, all the build-up days, the actual open days, and that's just for an empty hall. And then, of course, obviously, we have to take our tenancy up and let the fun start when the show begins. But we have to get all our operations in order, sort of logistics, putting manuals together for exhibitors so they know what they can and can't build, what time they can get in, what time they can get out, how they do their badges, all sorts of stuff. And then obviously the marketing for the visitors, that normally starts about 6-7 months out. It's free to register. We try, and not everybody who registers comes across the UK exhibition industry per se, regardless of sector. It's normally about a 50% take up for people that register. For the last few years, we've managed to achieve 60% on cleaning, which we're very pleased about, feather in our cap. And obviously, we always try and build on that as well. So there's an awful lot goes on behind the scenes, because most people, the faces of the show, I suppose, are me and Michelle Andrews, who's my sales manager. But, we've got a big team that work across multiple events and products within Quartz Business Media. And they come together: marketing, operations, social media, all sorts. It's difficult to try and explain how much work it is, but there's a lot. Why do you think I've got no hair? I had a full afro when I first started on this job.
It's crazy when I think back to when I used to work in it, albeit almost 15 years ago. Like I said to you the other day, I was a stand builder.
Yeah.
So traveling all over Europe for different shows, doing different stands, different size stands, and nothing can prepare you for the amount of things that can go wrong.
Oh, goodness me. Yeah.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah.
I've been in the middle of I remember being in the middle of Stuttgart once with a show on my own. And it was only a small stand I had to put up, nothing too crazy. The show starting in about 5 minutes, and the last thing I had to do is put the monitor up, open the box, and the monitor's got a massive crack in it.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So then you're trying to run around Stuttgart, find a TV from somewhere in 5 minutes, and it is unbelievable how many things can go against you, and they always do. Even you could be, we had such a great team who organised everything. You can't prepare for the things that are going to go wrong on that day. It's.
I mean, the great thing for me, I mean, you'll have known this working on my side of the fence, but on the actual sort of construction side of it, is how when you actually get on site, the pulling together between the actual organisers and the contractors. Everybody wants to make it happen, no matter how big the bump in the road is. I'll give you an example. So London 2025, one of our biggest exhibitors, Nilfisk. Now, they had a 100-metre stand right on the front row. They always build a beautiful stand. And they had problems getting their shipment. Their stand was built, I think, in Denmark, because they're a Danish company. The stand was built in Denmark, and they drove it down in a wagon, and they were crossing over from Holland or the Hook of Holland. But they got delayed because obviously we're no longer members of the EU. Thank you. And so all of a sudden there was a lot more paperwork and stuff involved, and they got quite severely delayed. Now, normally if you're building your own stand, what we call space only, you get a day or 2 days longer to build up before all the sort of shell scheme stands, because all people have to do is come in and just fill the shell.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of physical construction goes involved. So thankfully, my contact there contacted me and said, "Look, we've got a massive problem. We can't get in until day 2. We're gonna lose a day, basically." So we thought, Christ, what we're going to do. But also, because not only was it a massive build, but by the time they would have arrived, most of the show would have been built. And you can't just have large pieces of stuff coming through the hall when everything's on a deadline. We have to get carpet down. Some of the aisles are wider than others, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And this is where everything pulls together. Thankfully, there wasn't a show next door, and Excel allowed us, for a charge, of course, good old Excel, to use some space that was on the other side, outside of the show perimeter. So, cut a long story short, Nilfisk eventually did get their boat over, and we were given permission by Excel for them to build the stand overnight. Nilfisk obviously paid for the privilege of doing that. So by the time we came on site about 7 o'clock the following morning, the thing was nearly done. But you can't legislate for stuff like that. Stuff being held up at customs.
No.
When I used to work many years ago, I used to work for an American company called Penwell, and they worked in the power generation sector. And we used to run a show, not mine, but we used to run a show called Russia Power. It was a very successful show, but we had to budget 20,000 quid each show for bribes. So people like Siemens and ABB could get their equipment in just to bribe the people to get
them in.
Just to get people through. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
You couldn't run a show there now anyway. There wouldn't be the appetite for it, obviously, with everything that's going on. But so you just can't, it's just.
Yeah, that's great. I've never heard that one before. That's interesting. I mean, we did a few ones in China back in the day. This is a long time ago. So it was China 15, 16 years ago. It was different. But the crazy ones with the Chinese ones was they'd spend, because how much a stand could cost, anything from 10 grand to £500,000 or more. And some of the Chinese ones we did were like, pushing 100, 200 grand. You go there, build the thing, and then they wouldn't even tell us to put it back together. They'd tell us just to dump it on a fire and burn it.
Yeah, I mean that is
the show.
Yeah, that is the problem. A lot of stuff, our exhibition industry is, we do put a lot of stuff in landfill, unfortunately. I mean, one of the big debates in the exhibition industry, because another show that we run at Excel, not run by me, but is a sports and fitness show called Elevate, and they never put any carpet down, and a lot of shows don't do that. And let's be honest, it saves money. It doesn't look smart, but it saves money. So the floor at Excel is not great, but at the end of the day, you're not there to see the floor, are you? Yeah. We always still do put carpet down. I think if we canvassed our exhibitors about not doing it, I think they would probably say we prefer it if you did, because the show, it makes the show look a lot smarter. But unfortunately, a lot of our carpet does end up in landfill. So
there's a lot of waste that goes to it, but it's difficult, isn't it? Because it's a one and done. A lot of it, you can't reuse a lot of that, can you?
Yeah. Well, the other problem is sometimes, particularly with overseas exhibitors, once the show's over, everything gets pulled down and people just want to get away as soon as they possibly can. And sometimes they just leave piles of rubbish for stuff that they take back. And particularly if it's like companies in China, for example, trying to chase that money, because Excel will charge us for clearing up. So we might incur, post-show costs, which we hadn't budgeted for, trying to get that money out of China, good luck with that. They're not going to pay after they've gone. Do you know what I mean? So,
I mean, I remember seeing the exhibition halls at the end, and it was just basically one big pile of wood and bubble wrap at the end, basically what it was.
And then you have to get it out quick, because as soon as you're out, there's another one moving in.
Another show coming in.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And it's what was particularly challenging about it is you are against a deadline. right?
Yes.
You've
Oh,
got an
yeah.
X amount of time to do this thing and you can't go over. And so you are going at it so quickly, so fast. And if there's mistakes, it just eats into your time. Um, it really is it's like building a house in a day kind of thing. It's
Yeah.
kind of crazy, isn't
I
it?
know.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
one of the things that I thought would be interesting to ask you, Paul, is you obviously you've been running events and exhibitions for 30 years. What makes the cleaning show different to some of the other ones that you've done over the years?
Funny enough, actually, the reason I'm doing this job is because my governor and I used to work together probably 20 years ago. We worked. We were both sales managers on co-located events. His was a furniture show, mine was a lighting show, and it was for for shops that used to buy furniture and lighting. And the show that I ran, lighting show, had the very, very heavy association involvement. In fact, actually, we acquired it from the Lighting Association. And my governor approached me. We hadn't kept in contact, and he approached me and said, I might have a job for you if you'd be interested. Very similar to what you did at lighting. And lighting not only had, very heavy association involvement, but it was also a very small and sort of like described as a cottage industry.
Mm.
Everybody knew each other, very incestuous, all that sort of stuff. And he said to me, cleaning's not that dissimilar, loads of associations involved. Once again, very incestuous cottage industry. Yeah, of course, there's some big, global brands, etc. But there's a lot of very, successful family-run businesses and setups within it. And he said, do you want to have a chat with me about it? Well, here I am, and it's true. I found that. And the other thing I think, what's great about it for me is because I get to meet my visitors as well as my exhibitors.
Mm.
So yeah, I go and see my exhibitors as often as I can, and they spend money with me, and I try and go and see them to sort of just keep reestablishing that we're doing a good job for them and try and find out what we need to do to take that forward, etc. But the show would be no good without the people coming through the door.
Mm-hmm.
And because the cleaning and hygiene sector is so sociable, there are so many events on throughout the year, and I've got to meet so many visitors. I mean, I'm going to Pontefract next week for the CSSA Ladies' Day. Yeah, it's a day out and all the rest of it, but there'll be, I don't know, 100 or so people within that room, and it'll be, people that I know, people that I don't know, people that spend money with me, people that come to the shows, etc. And it's great. You can just get a lot of sort of chat done in that sort of environment. So it's been really, really valuable for me. They're a good bunch. Some of them are nutcases, but then, but in a good way. Yeah, and that's what I really like about it. It's and they make you feel welcome. So,
yeah, generally I've found there's just so many good people, so many nice people, authentic people. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because that being an incestuous industry can work in your favor, and it can massively work against you as well. Because if you get a reputation for doing the wrong things, it spreads like wildfire.
Of course, yes,
more so than maybe some other industries. So it's key that you get your reputation right, isn't it? And manage it and treat people the way that you want to be treated and all the rest of it. And I think for the most part, everyone's very easy to get on with, aren't they? And good people. So
yeah, and the other thing I don't know whether people might disagree with this, but I'm very black and white. I speak my mind, and I tell people how it is, and because that's how I like to be spoken to as well. And
totally,
and generally that approach seems to have worked. So I hope that long may continue. So
absolutely.
I hope I haven't upset anyone.
Well, I'd rather, I think we both agree that you'd rather deal with people like that than not knowing where people stand, don't you?
Yes,
that's where it becomes challenging.
But, sorry to interrupt, but a lot of these events I go to, there are people that don't spend money with me that should do really, but don't for whatever reason. Either they don't want to, or they can't, or they spend their money elsewhere and all the rest of it. But I have good relationships with those people as well. I mean, what's the point in being funny with people just because they don't exhibit and they should exhibit, but they're not going to exhibit? So what do you want to do? Difficult with them? Why not? If they're nice people,
Yeah.
Sometimes actually approach, that sort of standoff approach, actually, after a while, sometimes that it does work, and people do eventually
Come to you.
come through.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
totally.
yeah.
And what about, if anything, over since you've been involved, obviously, is this your, it's your fourth year, right? But is that right, or fifth year?
My first show that I sold was London 23, but I was
23.
I was at Manchester 22, but I'd literally started that week, so I'd had no involvement with
Got
it.
you. So the one next year will be the fourth,
Yeah, yeah.
full year that you've done it. Uh, During that, have you noticed many changes in that time already around how, with the visitors or the exhibitors, is anything changing year on year, or do you generally find it's pretty similar experience and the same type of things are coming up?
We try not to make it a similar experience, obviously, because I think that there's a risk that if you're just cooking the same meal every 2 years, then, people are going to get bored.
Mm.
You've got to constantly try and reinvent the wheel and look for new customers. And I suppose the great thing about cleaning is that every building in this country needs to be cleaned.
Mm.
So you've got an infinite number of people that you can pitch or find to come and visit the show. So whilst the show, long before me, when it first started back in Birmingham all those years ago, it started out very much as a show for the contract cleaning sector, sprinkled with a bit of FM. Whilst it still is very much a contract cleaning show with a lot of FM now, we, through no effort from us up until this point, have seen a sort of steady increase in people coming from vertical sectors. So obviously hospitality, education, healthcare, NHS, all sorts, industrial warehousing. And sometimes that's because they come off their own back. Sometimes it's because they come with their FM or contract cleaning company. So because we've seen a bit of growth in that area, we are focusing a lot of our marketing spend in that area for London this time around, to try and get more people to come from those sectors. And that's more challenging because if you work in the contract cleaning sector or FM in cleaning, you're going to probably come to the show anyway, because you'll see all your mates, you'll see all your suppliers, and it's, the biggest gathering of the sector in the UK. So why would you not go unless you couldn't go, right? If you're an FM in a university, you might not necessarily come because, your day job doesn't just involve cleaning, keeping the premises clean. Yeah. So there's a harder justification, particularly if you're in a different part of the country and it's a bit of a schlep to London to come down. So not only we are committed to spending money in lots of different sectors, but we're also committed to sort of tailoring our messaging to sort of try and justify you taking a half day or a day or 2 days to come down and wander around. And also the other things that we're going to do, we haven't started it yet, but I met a lady recently at the Worshipful Company lunch in London. She worked for an FM company down on the south coast, and she was telling me that she normally brings a customer with her. So we're going to sort of do this sort of bring a customer campaign this year as well, to try and, some people will already do it anyway, but with the whole idea is to sort of try and incentivize people to sort of if you want to spend a couple of days at the show, bring someone from the supermarket that you look after down, or the school that you look down. So I think that's probably where we see the growth coming, but we also don't want to neglect our traditional audience. So if I told you that one of the highlights for me after London 25 was a LinkedIn post by JPC by Sansik, and it basically said, we've been at the cleaning show for 3 days, we took 20 people, and I was like, wow. Now it's easy for them because they're based in the city of London and XL is based in the city of London. I understand that. But I thought, Christ, wouldn't it be great if every FM company bought their entire team for 3 days? They won't do, but they might do. So we want to be bloody greedy. We want everybody to come every day with absolutely everybody who's involved. And that's what our ambition is, because the more people that come through, the more likely the exhibitors are to be happy with the outcome. But we do have to make sure, obviously, that they're also seeing new people.
So when you think about that, when we look forward to the future, how do you think the cleaning show and everything around it's going to be different in maybe 5 years' time?
Difficult to answer. I mean, obviously, we have no say or in sort of the innovation that the exhibitors bring to the event. You know, that's obviously their job. Our job is to provide a forum for that to be represented. I mean, all I can tell you is obviously, you know, in the few years that I've done it, there are more robots. There's more software than we've ever had before, workforce management. So we get a lot more app companies applying and all that sort of stuff now. We're having a lot more inquiries from for period products, which is good. You know, washrooms, all that sort of stuff. Obviously, you know, sustainable products, etc. So, you know, I don't think I'm qualified enough to sort of talk about, you know, what will be on show in 5 years. All I can hope is that we are successful in continuing to build the show in terms of its size and the number of people coming through the door. It is a numbers game for us. More people through. It's much easier to grow a show in terms of number of exhibitors. If you grew the show by say 20% exhibitors, to try and get 20% more visitors is a lot harder, you know, because that might mean, for example, you grew it by 20%. So I got another, I don't know, 30 companies in to exhibit. Great. But that might mean that you have to go out and find another 1,500 people. You know, and that's not easy. So I suppose probably our biggest strategy is to keep the treadmill going and keep the numbers going.
I wonder, and I don't think anybody knows just yet, how AI is going to impact this cleaning and hygiene industry. There's the obvious ones where you know, obviously, like you said, there's a lot of software companies that are coming now that's going to have a heavy AI influence to it. I guess the robotics are going to have an element to it. But I wonder what else that we don't know about yet is going to be coming into this market with the use of AI or affected by it, that is going to change it in some way that we don't know yet. And that might be that some of the vertical industries, they have that affects them, and that brings them over to, again, the show in some way that we don't know yet.
Quite possibly.
So it's just impossible. I speak to so many people in our industry about AI, and I think the big challenge with it is that people don't understand how it's going to be applicable to what they do. They know they get involved with it, but how do I apply it in a way that's actually going to be beneficial for us, if you're a manufacturer or contract cleaner, FM, distributor, even us, and you as well, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm once again, I don't know enough about it. My marketing manager's all over it. She gets very excited about it. But you know, I think it's, in general, AI, not just particularly for our sector. There's a lot of scaremongering going on about, you know, it's like some, you know, man-eating fungus that's going to take over the world, and none of us will be working, you know, in 20 years' time. You know, complete nonsense, of course. But obviously, you know, then if you talk to a lot of people in the NHS, you know, AI could potentially play quite a huge role for them in terms of, you know, patient data and all that sort of stuff, and diagnosis and all that. So clearly there's a massive positive to it. It's just a question of getting that messaging across for what it can do, rather than it being this big bad ogre. It doesn't help that, you know, when you get stories about OpenAI's system running amok and hacking something the other day and all that. So I don't know. We're going to cover it in the conference. I think we've sort of taken a bit of a sort of a tokenistic approach on it so far. Oh yeah, we better cover AI. But I think, having dabbled with it in Manchester for the first time this year, I think, you know, we need to look at it. We might even do something on it every day rather than just on one day. And I think one of the criticisms I read was that it was nice that we had it, but it wasn't hard hitting enough. So I would explore a little bit into that. But yeah, I mean,
you need to find what it is. You need to find what the subject is that actually gets interest. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because we don't really know.
Yeah.
You're kind of just sort of guessing somewhat.
Yeah.
I think one thing that we're going to see come in over time is, maybe you might end up having them as visitors or exhibitors, is a hell of a lot of like AI lead generation agencies coming in, helping all your exhibitors get leads in some way, you know, because that's the one part. I do sales recruitment, and that's the one part of sales where AI that I can see so far is having a massive impact, is on the lead generation aspect. The relationship management and the actual selling bit, you need a person for that. People aren't going to trust a machine, especially in our markets. But that front end bit, that's where a lot of that can be done. And those companies are popping up everywhere. Eventually, I think they're going to start seeping into us as well. But no one thinks of cleaning and hygiene for these things. I mean, even when we started up in August 2020, doing recruitment in this sector, I was shocked by how few other recruiters are doing it. I just think people just don't think about it for whatever reason. We sort of left in a little corner somewhere, which I actually don't think is a bad thing, because I think a lot of these things that are going to affect the world in many ways will end up affecting cleaning and hygiene. It's just going to take a lot longer for the market to adopt it, as opposed to other sectors like tech or financial services or other ones that are a lot more at the tip of the spear of it.
I mean, I think, I mentioned about our marketing manager being all over it earlier on and stuff like that. And she's done a lot of good work in terms of sort of, accruing data for us in terms of, leads for exhibitors and also new potential visitors. So that's good. However, I can tell sometimes when she sends me something to proof and I go like, you've not written this, this is that you've just gone, press the button and it's come up. And I do think, and I get the fact that it's, it saves time and all the rest of it. But, sometimes it takes the soul and the personality out of it. Mm-hmm. And I don't like that. I'm not saying I would trample all over her ambitions to do that every single time. But sometimes I think, this doesn't really sum up what we're trying to do. Mm. We need to put our own personality onto it. Mm-hmm. So I think, who knows, 5 years time, it might be doing that in itself anytime. Who knows, maybe 2 years time, I don't know. But maybe. I do think it sometimes can be a little bit soulless and a little bit devoid of personality, because it's basically serving up the same meal for everybody, isn't it?
It is. But you're still not going to, if you're making big decisions, you're still not going to trust it though. Like, I can't see an AI salesperson in our industry coming around anytime soon. I can't imagine any of the buyers or any of the distributors or anybody working with that thing going, yes, shut up and take my money. Yeah. You don't trust that thing, There's no stakes with it. It's maybe way down the line that could be different. Maybe with a new generation, I've just had a newborn. Maybe my daughter's generation will see these things differently. Yeah. But I can't see some things happening for a long time. I think more of the transactional elements, we're seeing that already with sales, like the email marketing, that type of stuff. But you're right with the content. I write a lot of content, a lot of rubbish, a lot of people would say on LinkedIn, but I make sure that I write it every single time, because I'd rather it be rubbish and it come from me than be polished and not be from me. You can see it a mile off.
Sounding like everybody else. Yeah.
This is it. I leave the poor grammar in, stuff like that, because it shows that as a person who's doing that, I think the authenticity moving forwards of all of us is going to have a lot more, it's going to amplify the human bits that we want from people, isn't it? And
that human element is so important, because I always say to people, I never really relax on day one of the show until maybe about an hour and a half in. Once the doors are open, the thing looks beautiful, and the hall is full. And cleaning show is a strange one. It's a frustrating one, because it's great to see queues of people outside. Brilliant. Okay, doors open, people charge in, place fills up, and then for maybe 4 or 5 hours, it's heaving, and then it tends to empty out a little bit, and then you've got people kicking their heels because they've all gone off somewhere else or what have you, and you can't stop that happening, unfortunately, apart from locking the doors. Keep everyone in.
New strategy, 2020, 2027.
Where are you going, sir? Get back in. But normally about because we open at, I think, at 10 o'clock. So normally about 11:30, 12 o'clock, the best thing for me is wandering around the hall and just listening to the buzz. And I'm constantly on the go, walking around, seeing who's busy, seeing who's not busy, and just watching people in the aisles, walking up to each other, shaking hands, smiling, giving each other a hug, because they all know each other. How are you? And all that. And that's brilliant. That's the most rewarding part of it, I think, apart from when it finishes and I can have a beer and not worry about it.
Yeah, right.
But and that's the human side of exhibitions. I think when COVID happened, obviously events got shut down completely, and we missed interaction with human beings and on all levels, personal, work wise, etc. But, that's why I enjoy working in events so much, because it's really rewarding when you see that happen. I don't, don't get me wrong. I've worked on some stinkers. I've worked on shows where the place has been empty for 2 days and it's horrible, absolutely horrible. People come look, you told me that, cleaning's not like that, but, we're not going to rest. We're not going to sit on our hands or rest on our laurels or whatever you want to say. We've got to keep it going. I've seen too many exhibitions over the years. No, not all ones that I've worked on. Just fall from grace because they take their eye off the ball and they just become cocky and arrogant and just assume that people are going to come back year after year after year after year, and because they don't keep checking back with them to see whether it's working or not. So and
I bet one of the things in your role is you're obviously trying to get exhibitors involved, right? And they're looking at the cost of it, which the cost is one number, very obvious. How much it's going to cost,
and it's a big number,
and it's a big ass number.
Yeah.
But sometimes the ROI can be sometimes it can be very obvious. You come away with, client, an exhibitor has 300 new contacts they get from it. But sometimes the ROI is things that you can't put your finger on when it comes to like brand awareness or even relationships, right? You can't put always an ROI on those things.
Well, I always think ROI is a really difficult thing to quantify, because if you're selling stuff from your stand, then you can always work out, how much you've sold compared to how much you've spent. But cleaning show isn't really like that, and no one's going to come onto your show and go, oh, I'll have 20 of them, them 15 grand machines. They might finalize the deal at the show, etc. But all that work's been going on by the supplier and their sales people, behind the scenes for a long time. So ROI is a really difficult thing to quantify. We had in 2023, we had an exhibitor who took a 12-meter stand, nothing massive, and they provided these big baling machines for cardboard and newspaper. Nothing like that was elsewhere in the show. And he contacted me and he said, look, do you reckon this show will work for us? This is what we do. So I said, well, who do you want to get in front of and all the rest of it? So it turned out the target audience that he wanted to reach was the target audience that we had, because we had a lot of local authorities coming, building managers, all that sort of stuff. So, who don't just look after cleaning, they look after, they're getting rid of the waste, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I said to him, look, we get them coming through, but I cannot guarantee you that this will work for you. So I was brutally upfront with him. I didn't want him to have a rotten show. And on day one, I could not get on his stand, because every time I went around to see him, it was busy. It was always people there, right? And he came up to me at the end of day 3 and said, I want to rebook. He said, but I'm not allowed to. Can you give this woman a call at the office? He said, I want to rebook. It's been great. I've had 200 leads or something like that. Now, they never came to the show again. And the reason they never came to the show again is because they didn't convert any of those leads.
Yeah.
So is that my fault?
Nothing you can do about that.
Is that my fault? Now, at the end of the day, these machines cost a lot of money. And, local authorities are struggling for money and all the rest of it at the moment. And, it's I provided him with 200 odd leads. Now, he may have converted some of those subsequently, but they never came back. So I suppose it depends on what your definition of ROI is. And I think if you probably spoke to all our exhibitors, what they give me is a tiny percentage of what they spend on being there, because they have to build the stand, there's the electrics, there's the hotels, there's the, taking people out, taking customers out for dinner and all the rest of it, people flying in from all over the world. It costs them probably a good bit of money, and I probably only get maybe 20% of that. Are they going to get ROI on all of that? It depends on how you define it. I don't know, but all I can tell you is that most of them come back every 2 years, so they must be doing something right.
Well, I guess with these days as well, I guess it's always been this way, but these days people can look at other avenues as well. Social media 20 years ago can do that. AI itself, virtual events, Teams calls, so much more you can do as opposed to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. So why do you think exhibitions still matter moving forwards?
Because I think it's that human thing. I think, we'll take you back to COVID. Now, all of a sudden, no one had ever heard of Zoom, right, before COVID, but all of a sudden everyone was doing Zoom calls. So you did it for work, or you got all your mates together, or you'd have a book club and all of that, like we are now, talking on two ugly blokes on a screen. Yeah. So, but if would we want to do this every week rather than go out and have a beer, for example, or go and grab a coffee?
No.
This is okay to a point, but every now, how great was it when the first lockdown finished and we were all allowed to go out and have a coffee? We had to do the social distancing. So rather than sit with your arm around someone, you had to wave at them across a crowded room, or not crowded room. It was brilliant, wasn't it? We missed that so much. And I think that's the same thing with exhibitions. And I come back to also, we've all gone full circle about this industry. This industry all gets on. They like seeing each other. They enjoy it. The number of awards and that there are throughout the course of the year, the number of dinners that we go to or get invited to go to, or various, as I said, Ladies' Day next week, the Savoy lunch, the CHSA gala dinner. There's so many get-togethers, and those wouldn't happen if people didn't go to them, and people like going to them. Yeah. So, and I think that's the case. I think that's what it is, and long may it continue.
I mean, I can tell you from my own personal experience, Paul, and I mean, when we started the business, the foundations that we built it on, we're trying to be very modern. So technology, tools, working remotely, AI, all these things are the foundation of what we did, and social media as well, and I can tell you the ROI from all of our tools because it gives me a number and I put it in. I know where it is. And we spend a lot of money on all those tools and a lot of effort. But the crazy thing is that every time I go to the cleaning show or into clean, walk away from those shows with 10 times the leads I have from any of the tools that we've implemented over 6 years.
Yeah.
And I think that just shows you, we always walk away going, that's the best ROI that we ever spend is going there and spending even just a day there.
Yeah.
It gives us so much more, not just on that, but also for me personally, I work remotely. A lot of the sales guys that I recruit for work remotely too. We're not very good at being alone for long periods of time. We're social creatures, right? And there's only so much Teams and Zoom, to your point, you can do. But I really enjoy going to the cleaning show or into clean every year because it's my one of the times that I get to actually be a human being and see other people and shake a hand and actually have, be near and around other people. And I always come away feeling excited about that, that you can't beat it. And I think I'd imagine that feeling, I wouldn't have been saying that to you 20 years ago. The world was in a different place, wasn't it? If I was a sales guy, I'd be spending more time with my customers. If I was a recruiter, I'd be spending more time with my customers. But the world we're going into is we're getting more isolated. I think the value of exhibitions and events like this are only going to increase even more so.
No, I think you're right. I mean, look, do I know how to operate a robot? No, I don't. Okay, I can move a Hoover around and all the rest of it, but I don't understand, apart from aesthetically, the difference of one Hoover to another. But then I don't need to. What I need to understand is why those people that sell those Hoovers, all those robots, come to the show and what their needs are, and what they want from me, and the way I prefer to do that is to be visible. So coming back to what I was saying, my governor and I, when we worked together 20 years ago, furniture show, lighting show, we were the second biggest trade event in the UK. And we ran it at the NEC and it was in January. And literally we would run our show. And then the week afterwards, the biggest trade fair in the UK called the Spring Fair, which is still going, that would be in after us. And that was a gift show. So, but we had a lot of crossover of our exhibitors. So for example, I had a lot of table lamp people that would also sell to gift shops as well as furniture shops. So not only were we, knocking our pipe out at the show when the show was on, we'd then go back to Spring Fair and then wander around the Spring Fair to see out the customers that we'd seen the week before to get some feedback from them. But then also to try and pick up some other business that perhaps, that we didn't work with. And we always got consistently told that the difference between you and the organisers of the Spring Fair is that you come and see us. You were on site at our show last week, and here you are literally a week later, suited and booted, walking around asking us what the show was like. He said, the people that organised this show, a company called EMAP, don't think they exist anymore now. He said, they never come to see us apart from when they want our money. you know. But they know, because the show got so big, and it was like, well, if you don't sign it, we've got someone else waiting for it. None of this
Yeah.
loyalty. Okay, I've been doing it for 20 years. No, if you don't want it, we will put someone else there. And I learned an awful lot, because that was my first proper job in exhibitions. And I thought I'm never going to be like that. And unfortunately, I did actually work for a couple of firms that were all about the money and sold the customer. And I've never, ever, ever felt like that. And listen, there might be times when we lose some, and that will be a real shame. That's not the case. But funny enough, actually, we've got, I think, 3 or 4 that haven't done the show for some time in the show this year, which would be quite interesting. So eventually, a lot of them do come back. But and that's the thing for me. I like to be visible. That's why we go to all these things. That's why we go to all these industry events, because I do take money from people. But I provide a service. But if that service wasn't being provided consistently, then people would tell me, and you'd expect them to. The same way that their customers, would tell them that the machines aren't working properly, or the level of service I expect from you has gone a bit AWOL, or what have you. Yeah. So, it's just human nature, I think. Being visible, getting reassurance, giving reassurance. Most people generally, I think, I hope I'm not tempting fate here, are normally quite pleased to see me. And so I've never had anyone throw me out yet. So maybe that's still to come.
Well, it's a show.
Son, do one.
Yeah, see you later.
Ta-ta.
The thing is, with a show like that, if you're involved in it, there's also a lot of stress and anxiety around it, isn't it? And you need to sometimes have a person that you can speak to about these things, especially if you've never done it before. I'm sure you have these people all the time who've never done it before, and it's a big thing to undertake, especially if you've invested the money into it.
Yes, of course. Yes.
So I just can't see how you can operate in your industry without doing what it is that you do. It would just, without a person there who can help you. There's no shadow of a doubt. I imagine if you weren't doing what you're doing at other company, if you looked at what your retention rate is of customers versus those ones, it would be night and day. I imagine, because that's going to be a big part of why these people keep coming back, right? You're probably giving them a lot of comfort, a lot of value, a lot of help, support, and everything else.
And I think also the fact that, that we are visible, the fact that we're around, someone said to me, oh, you turn up at the opening of a paper bag, it's just, it's one of those things. It's just, we are at all those industry events. So we immerse ourselves in the industry. We understand, or we do our best to understand the associations that work with and what they're trying to achieve, and, what the customers are trying to achieve and stuff like that. So we get a better understanding of the way that it works, rather than just being someone who, can I have £30,000, please, for this stand?
Yeah.
It's just, if it's about building trust, isn't it? And helping your customers out as best as you possibly can when you can.
Totally.
Not the Nilfisk example, I mentioned it. I mean, had we not had that extra space on the side of the hall, Nilfisk wouldn't have been able to get their lorry in and unload and not disrupt the show, which was pretty much built because we were opening, the following morning, or one more the day after. So, and the lady at Nilfisk was hugely grateful, and bunches of flowers came through for the operations team and all that sort of stuff. And, so it's about building trust. And I think, hopefully I've managed to do that and will continue to do so.
Well, if you weren't there during that particular example, and like we said at the very beginning, these things that go wrong, you're guaranteed something's going to go wrong. Is that thing a small thing or is it a big thing? It's going to happen. And if you weren't able to assist them through that experience they had, probably a good chance that they ain't coming back, because that stress and that trauma of going through that is going to stick with you.
And it is stressful. I mean, over the years, I've been in, organisers' offices with angry exhibitors coming in, wagging their finger at me and lobbing a few expletives and all the rest of it. And then afterwards, once you get it sorted, they calm down. They say, well, look, I'm really sorry. And I say, look, it's fine. It was uncomfortable at the time, but look, we worked with you to try and get it resolved. Thankfully we did. Okay, it was a bit of inconvenience, but now, we're all best buddies again, and when we move on. So it is for, particularly as you say, you're waiting for, you're working on deadlines, and, you look at some of these things. I mean, look at what Pneumatic built. goodness me.
Jesus, the stand was unbelievable, wasn't it?
It was, you know,
Bloody
and
hell.
and they had a situation. I saw my contact in Interclean, and obviously it's about 4 times the size there, as you'd expect. But I saw him, and he said to me, I said, "How was yesterday?" He said, "All right." He said, "But Christ," he said, "we had a nightmare the night before due to open. They put some flooring down, and it all pulled up, and
Oh,
they'd used the wrong adhesive or something had happened. So they literally had to source, you know, this flooring which matched the rest of the design of the stand, and I think they
yeah,
had to
yeah.
go to another country or something and bring it in overnight, and you know, and all
Oh,
this.
you're giving me
And,
anxiety, Paul. I've been there. Oh, it gives me
yeah,
anxiety.
but you
It
know,
gives
I
me
mean, like, so,
anxiety. Those
yeah,
guys,
but
jeez.
literally they managed to do it. They
Yeah,
managed to do it, but people don't see all that behind the scenes, you know,
no,
and it's you know. So
they don't. Yeah, it's an absolutely huge undertaking. And when obviously you speak to so many exhibitors, what is it that you find the ones that get value out of it? What are they doing as opposed to the ones that don't get business leads, ROI value out of it? What are the differences that those
So, you
have?
know, what we always say to our exhibitors, and most of them are fairly seasoned now, you know, they know what they're doing. So, you know, you get people like, say, for example, Killies, right? So Killies are our biggest exhibitor because they take 100 meters at London, they take 100 meters at Manchester. So over the 2 shows, they spend more money with us than anybody else. So, but man alive, do they work? You know, he's got them drilled like a well-oiled machine. So they all, you know, they all wear their t-shirts, they all know their role, you know, and basically they work like Billy-O throughout the course of the show. So, and, you know, and they work really, really, really hard. So that's the first thing I think. If you're going to build a stand, regardless with this 5 meters or 500 meters, okay, you've got to make sure you work hard. Yeah.
Mm,
Too many exhibitions walk past people just sitting there with their arms folded or their laptops, you know, a few curly posters on the wall, taking no notice of the people that are coming on.
mm,
The other thing I think is that, you know, make sure it's a partnership. You know, if you're going to sit there and think to yourself, well, Paul Sweeney and his team are going to magic up every single lead that I want, it ain't going to happen. You
mm,
know, you've got to invite people as well yourself. So we provide a lot of marketing material to people and say, you know, stuff to put on your email signature, social media posts that you can use, banners that you can send out, and all this sort of stuff, telling people that you're going to be there. Invite your own customers to come along, particularly if you're launching something new. You know, sometimes they're going to appreciate an invite from you anyway, more than they might do just sort of come to something, you know, from the cleaning show. So a lot of customers, and I think most of the cleaning show people do this. Their customers know they're going to be there. They invite them along, come along, have a drink. We're going to show you this new range, or we can have these private meetings and all the rest of it. So it's about working in partnership with your exhibitors, and the exhibitors that have got people that do their preparation right, so
mm.
they maximize their time at the show. They're the ones I think that do the best. Yeah, and that's generally the way that it tends to work, I think. And once you're there, work your nuts off.
And then having people on the back end who can convert it, unlike that other company that you mentioned previously, right? It's the back end work as well, you know, striking while the iron's hot and
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. We have had exhibitors that turn around and said it's been disappointing, and sometimes it's very easy. You can't actually turn around and say, well, you sat on your backside all the time and didn't really do anything. Do you know what I mean? But sometimes that's the case. Sometimes it's not the case, and they do work hard, but they just didn't get out of it what they wanted to get out of it.
yeah,
And so, you know, we don't get it right for absolutely everybody, and you never will. But as long as we're getting it right for most people and it's doing a job, and because, you know, if it stops doing a job, and hopefully it won't do, if it stops doing a job, then you'll soon know about it. So, you know.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, is there anything else about the show, Paul, that you'd like to talk about, get out there for people to know?
I don't know really. I mean, I suppose the drum roll would be, and Lord Kitchener says, your industry needs you, we are, the largest gathering of the UK cleaning and hygiene sector in the UK. No one else comes anywhere near it, even though the Manchester show, which is a lot smaller than London, that's still the biggest gathering in the UK for that particular sector. I know a lot of people go abroad to Interclean, but it's normally about 2,000 UK. Will we get more than that, Manchester and at London? So, come along, support your industry, meet your mates. The conference program will probably be announced. We've got our first meeting about what we're going to put in for topics about that tomorrow. So the conference program will be announced. So you can pick up CPD points for attending the conference, but also there'll be some very interesting topics. So just come along. Make sure you put it in your diary, even if it's just for one day, but try and get along for longer. I know that's not particularly inventive, but that's about as good as I can think of at the moment.
Fantastic. And everyone who's listening, connect with Paul on LinkedIn as well, because you're always talking about new exhibitors coming in and who's signing up and things like that, aren't you? Updates that are going on.
I'm terrible. I've got I think about 2,500 connections on LinkedIn now. Most of them are cleaning people. I'm terrible. As soon as someone puts a post up, says, here's us at this particular place last week, I'm on that. Well, who's that? Oh yeah. Who's he work for? Operations Direct. Yeah. So I'm sending out stuff all the time to build up the network, and it's going gradually. Some people don't do it. But the great thing about it is the more people that I get connected to, the more people that we can get out and build our reach to.
I think that's how I came across your posts, was I saw it being liked by other people and then connected with you. That's the tool working as you hope it to.
Exactly. And we also, we always try and announce our new exhibitors when they've signed up. So whether it's been somebody who's done every show since the day dot, or somebody who's brand new, whether you're a 150 meter exhibitor or whether you're a 10 meter exhibitor, we always tell people that they're coming.
Yeah.
And then
I think that's really useful, by the way, because for me anyway, when I see your post, I'm like, oh, that's great to know. That's great to know. I'll keep a mental note of that. Because otherwise I'd have to just go onto the website and look at the exhibitor list, which I'm probably not going to do for some time. But that constant update of things going on, it's great to have sort of that omnipresence of knowing that, all right, the show's coming, they're coming, those guys are coming, keeps it in your mind.
Do you know what? In all the years I've worked in events, and you put together all these sort of like glossy brochures with all these pie charts and bar charts and demographics and what percentage came from here and he did this and he did that. 9 times out of 10 it boils down to who else is going. Are they going? Oh, well, if they're better going, well, we better be there then, and so that always makes me laugh. That. So I think the fact that, if you tell people who's going, then you might get a competitor going, oh, maybe we should be looking at that.
Absolutely.
So the other thing is sometimes there's also this little bit of sort of safety in numbers thing. So as the show grows, then people think, well, they've reached 90 exhibitors now. It's going to be a good show. Therefore, we now feel, comfortable taking the plunge. Whereas
quite a bit of psychology going on, isn't there, with people's decision making with this?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of social, sort of tribal things going on that we don't really know about.
And also the other thing is from a visitor point of view, if you are going to take a day off work or 2 days off work and come, you want enough to justify your time getting there. There'll always be someone who's going to walk around, I got round it in half an hour. Well, you didn't really look properly, you didn't really stay and plan your visit and all the rest of it. But if you've got a proper mass of stuff there, then you can justify, asking to take the train from Leeds to London for 100 quid or whatever it is, because look, there's going to be 90 plus exhibitors there. I mean, we had 157, I think, 2 years ago. If we reach that, great, but we'll get well over 100. And that's enough. That's a critical mass, I think, enough for people to want to come. And also, there's other stuff going on, Meta Tissue have got their big sustainability awards on the middle night. That'll be the 3rd time they've run that. The Hill Club always have, their big social event on the middle night of the show as well. Karcher take out their customers. Lots of people take out their customers and stuff like that. So it's not just the show. People build stuff around it.
Yeah, totally.
Right. And I don't mind those people, sort of becoming limpets, if you like, onto the show, because for me that's great because it just brings everybody together.
Rising tides, isn't it?
It shows to me that how important it is to everybody, and that's hugely gratifying.
Yeah, it's only it's all part of the ecosystem that helps everybody ultimately, isn't it? So
I think so.
I think that's great. And I think, like we said before, I think those things are only going to become more important over time. And we're going to see a lot more of it with AI technology and everything else, remote working, that yearning to be around other people, which can sometimes be a bit daunting. I remember when I went to my first show, I mean, given that I used to build stands and have been to shows millions of times, when I went to my first one, I was like a bit scared.
Yeah.
Going around and having to go onto stands, and I don't really drum up business in that way, but just going and speaking to people.
Yeah.
Can be quite daunting. But
I still find that hard now, wondering, I've never felt comfortable with going onto a stand at another exhibition and pitching. I still don't enjoy that. I always basically 9 times out of 10 say, look, we're in your sector. This is my card. Give it to and just leave it. They're all very sort of informal.
Yeah,
and I still don't get a massive enjoyment out of doing that, because they're there to sell. They're not there to buy, aren't they?
This is it.
So,
I think that type of approach with what you do, and actually is the same approach as what we have to do as well. We're the specialists in this. Here if you need us.
Yeah.
That's all you kind of need to do. If they need you, they'll reach out.
I've spent, God knows how many thousands of pounds being here, and I didn't spend that to see you, my friend.
Yeah. They definitely didn't spend it to see me. I can guarantee.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
But no, thank you so much, Paul. It's been.
No, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. You're more than welcome, and hopefully we'll do it again in the future. As the show evolves, and I'm sure it will do in ways that we don't know yet.
Who knows what the future holds, eh?
Absolutely. And thanks for putting it all on, because it's fantastic. And it like you say,
make sure you come.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Everybody come. It's worth it. It's the time of the year where I go there and I get really excited because I get to be around people, which doesn't happen as much as I would like. And we get business from it too. So what's not to love about it? But yeah, thanks for joining us, Paul. It's been really fascinating, peeking behind the curtain a little bit. So I appreciate it.
All right. Cheers. All the best.
Cheers, Paul.
Ta-da.